When God calls us to do something, He gives us a vision, He gives us a hope. When we begin to actually move towards it, we not only see that hope become a reality, we see that our relationship with God gets closer. Because if God has birthed an idea in you, God has given you something that it's bigger than you and it's not borrowed, it's yours, it's unique to you, then you acting it out, you putting that faith behind it, you moving in that direction towards it, it's good for your own soul. You become closer and closer to the person you were meant to be.
Good morning. Good to see you guys. It is a beautiful day outside, isn't it? We've got to figure out how we can do this outside, right? We got to figure that out. Some of you guys need to fast and pray, figure that out. No, don't do that. Hey, can we do this though? We've got some guests joining us. I mean, obviously there's some people here in the house that I have not met. Maybe it's your first time. I'm Naeem, love to meet you after the service. But we've got some people who've tuned in and live stream. There are people who are out of the country, traveling. They got stuff going on. But can we just make them feel at home? Can we just say hello? Hey, make some noise for them. We love you. Thanks for jumping in. Thanks for jumping in. Yes. This morning is pretty defining, I think, for some of you guys, if not all of us. Here's why: because if you're here and you're joining us online, you are starting the conversation. Like, this is the first week of a 4-week conversation called Lean In. That's why we're playing the video. That's why we're talking about this idea of, hey, what does it look like? What does it mean to lean into what God is doing in your life and in and around you? Like, what would it look like if you really leaned into what God is really doing in your life? Are you leaned in? And for some of you who are just checking Mosaic out, maybe you're watching online going, I'm not sure if I should attend, I'm not quite sure. Maybe you've been visiting for the past couple of weeks now in the summer. You're thinking, okay, I don't know what this church is about. This 4 weeks, we're going to be just laying it all out, make it really easy for you to go, okay, this is something we want to sign up for or not. Now, here's why we're doing this is because there are so many great churches in Charlotte, isn't there? I mean, there's some wonderful churches, wonderful communities, and it's hard to sometimes pick a church. And so this series is going to be about telling you what we're about so you can have a better idea. And so I want you to, if you're just visiting or tuning in, I want you to make sure you join us for the next 4 weeks. Say 4 weeks, please. 4 weeks, because then you're gonna go, okay, this is it. This is what they're about. And if you've been coming for a long time, love that you're a part of us. This is our way of really just coming back, resetting to, like, this is what God's called us to do. This is what we're about. And so this morning, I want to start the conversation by telling you a conversation that I had with my son. So my son is 13, and he's right here. Hey. Can you make some noise for him? I mean, come on, right? That is the perks of being my son. Right there. That was it. So we had this conversation. He got back from camp, and our youth, if you don't know, our next generation pastor, Brandon, took our youth to camp, and it was middle school camp and then high school camp, and so they had a great time. It was awesome. It's wonderful. If those of you who do not know, we do have a youth ministry, meets here on Wednesdays. Can you say Wednesdays? Wednesday nights, right here. And so we're having this conversation. He goes, Dad. And this is a little serious. He goes, Dad, I think, and this was not a joke. He was like, Dad, I think Pastor Brandon is cooler than you. Right. I was like, what kind of satanic camp is this? And he was like serious. He was like, just matter of fact in it. And he was like, hey, I just think he is. So I don't know if you've met Pastor Brandon. He was youth pastor here. He's former generation pastor, whatever. Because there can be only one. No. Here's what's great about that comment, though. It is a beautiful thing to be in a part of a community, part of a church, where your kids find heroes besides you, and they look up to them. I mean, I was like, yes, he's cooler, sort of, maybe. I don't know. We'll pray about that one. But hey. I'm like, this is awesome. This is great. And so we began talking about what he was learning, and then he goes on. He goes, hey, so I found they were talking about the speakers at the conference, and he said, I love the speaker, and I was like, I'm okay too, I'm whatever. But he's like, this speaker was amazing, and I was like, okay, tell me what. He says, what does he have that I don't have? Anyway, so I spoke at this camp last year, and so I was like, okay, I want to know. And so he begins talking to me about a lid, and he had his own lid, and actually his lid said, live above the lid. And he begins to tell me that the speaker started the talking about this concept that you can, in fact, it's known that you can train fleas. And so it's ironic, though, or interesting, very interesting, that if you take a jar and you put fleas in there, and you leave them, you close the lid up for about 3 days, something interesting happens. See, a flea can jump about 80 times its own height, which means a human can jump. That would mean a human could jump like as high as a football field and a half. Wow, that would make football very interesting. I'm just saying. So, I mean, the capacity is huge. And so, but if you put the fleas over there, they'll start jumping for a couple of days, but then they will stop jumping. Like they'll hit the lid and they'll stop. Experiments have shown that that if you take off the lid after 3 or 4 days, you can actually see them jump, but they will not jump out. They will jump to the level of their lid, the height of their lid. Now, some people have said that if you take those same fleas and they have kids, little cute baby fleas, if they reproduce, that whole same batch reproduces, they grow up never jumping high. They do what their parents do. They'll only jump to the level of the lid. Even though they were born with this capacity to jump so much more higher. And so this was the interesting question. Are you living underneath your lid or over it? Could you have something that is a lid in your life? Is there a habit? Is there a belief? Is there a conviction even? Is there something that you think that it's true? Is it a disappointment? Is it a situation that maybe it's a sickness? Maybe it's a person? Maybe it's a company? I don't know. But is there something or someone in your life that is the lid that you live under? And sometimes, tragically, it's family members at times. Unknowingly, they can become the lid in your life. Are you living and are you jumping as high as you can, or are you jumping because the level of the disappointment that was there for 3 days, the despair that was there for 3 days or for 3 months, the level of like the resistance you hit? What were you in a season where you were put in a situation and you kept jumping and jumping and hitting a ceiling, hitting a wall, hitting a lid, and then you stopped jumping? Could it be possible that you and I, maybe it's certain areas of our life, that we are just not living all that we could live? We're not jumping as high as we can we're not leaned into what God is doing in us and through us. We're kind of like leaned away, disengaged, maybe distracted, maybe just entertained with doing a lot of things that we know we can do. The height that we can jump, just doing stuff that we know is going to get some results, doing things that we know that's, in fact, it's inside the jar, it's contained, and they're like people around you are doing the same thing, and they're going, you are great, you're successful, you're doing the best you can, this is awesome, but none of your community realizes that they're all under a lid. And then you meet someone, or you talk to someone and you go, that person doesn't live underneath a lid, and they're jumping so much higher, and you wonder, why did you stop? That's the question. Pretty deep, isn't it? Does God even care? Of course God cares. If He's the one who created you with a capacity to jump, to try, to create, to innovate, to risk, to give, to commit, to obey, to a certain height. Could it be possible that you're not leaning into what God is doing in your life, around you? So this morning, the conversation is really about, what does it look like to lean into what God is doing? How does it look like to live above the lid, to jump as high as you were created to jump? Could that be possible? Could that be possible? I think it is. So the next question obviously is what? What do you do? What do you do? How do we see this in the scriptures? And we could do that. I think the tendency sometimes is to just go, okay, what do we need to do now? What do we need to do now? Next week is the what. This morning is the why. But because you and I have to start with the why. Like why? And it's so much harder to realize or understand or even discover what your why is. Like, for example, let me just ask you this, okay? Why do you exist? Let me ask you a better question. Why do you matter? Like, why are you important? Why were you born? What is the big deal with you and your life? Like, why would people even care if you weren't around? Why? Why do you exist? What's so special about you? Now I know, I'm looking at faces of people going, okay, this is depressing. Like, that's why I'm here, buddy. Like, I struggle with this. Okay, let me clarify it. Those of you who just signed off, sign back in. Let me just say this. You are important. You are important. You matter. You are uniquely created. You're not a mistake. You're gonna make it. You're not messed up to the degree that you think you are. You are uniquely here in this moment in history to accomplish something. You matter. You exist because you were let into this world. You're listening right here. This moment has been created intentionally for you. You matter. I know this. If you don't know this, I know this. But I don't know why. I know you do. I just don't know why. Now, for those of you who go, Naeem, I just really struggle with that. I struggle with this idea of identity, and I struggle with this idea of being important or being matter. I just struggle with that. Let me just tell you, ICU talks. Can you say ICU talks? 1, 2, 3. I know I messed that up. Okay, 1, 2, 3. ICU Talks is doing a conference. We're partnering with them. They're having a conference. They are set up underneath the tent. Kim Honeycutt and her team, they're underneath the tent. It's the best $20 you will ever spend. The conference is coming up next week. It is a mental and emotional health conference. It is crucial if you struggle with these things. It's crucial. If you just want to come in, I'm going to be a part of that. It is something that you have to do for you. Do yourself a favor. But if you can go with me, let's just talk about this why. Let's talk about why you're important. I told you that you are important. The question is, why? Like, what is your unique thing? Have you discovered your gift, your unique calling? Have you figured that out, your personality? Or are you just living the life in the jar? Are you living the life that says, I got to provide, I got to have a family, I got to do this, I got to get married, I got to do this, I got to graduate, I have to, find friends, I have to do the basic stuff that everyone does. Everyone does. Or could it be possible that this morning you go, okay, hold on, I'm going to find out why I exist. What is my mission? Like, God, what is special and unique about me? Why do I matter in this time in history? See, I don't know this because it's going to require you to have a conversation with yourself, God, other people, and really wrestle this out. And it might even take a year to figure this out. But my friends, you have to. You have to discover your why. Or you just focus on the what of life. I'm going to do this now, I'm going to do this now, and it's going to be a list of things you're just going to keep on doing. And you're never going to realize, okay, no, hold on, why does it matter? Because I will tell you this, when life gets hard, you're not going to focus on the what. You're going to focus on why. Because what's going to happen is when you hit that lid, when you hit discouragement, when you hit people saying this is not going to work, when you hit people just discouragement or even betrayal, all kinds of things, you're going to ask yourself, man, you know what? It doesn't even matter. That's what you're going to say. It doesn't even matter. It doesn't even matter. What I do doesn't even matter. Why? Because you've never answered the question why it matters. Why does it matter? Why? Why does it matter? And what do you do? What do we do? What do we do when we're distracted and discouraged? And how does God interact with us? If you're there, what is God saying to you? What is God saying to me? If you're not leaning in, you're kind of going back into what you used to be doing. What does God say? So let's go to the scriptures. There is a passage, this is pretty profound. This is Jesus and Peter. Now, how many of you, if you know Peter, make some noise. Anybody know Peter? Peter the apostle? Yeah, okay. So Peter's this guy who is, you can't get away from his personality in the scriptures. Especially in the Gospels, this is the guy who's the first guy who said, hey, Jesus, I think you're the Messiah, the Son of God. And then Jesus says, you're not that smart, and I know God revealed this to you, but I'll tell you what, upon this confession, I'm going to build my church. Peter, you're going to be this guy. You're going to be the rock. Before the rock was the rock, Peter was the rock. This is like, you're it. You're that guy. He's also the guy, remember the whole walking on water? Guess who did that? Anybody? Peter. For a little bit, but he did. All the other dudes were in the boat, right? He went for it. This is the guy who, even like we talked about love and all that, and then right before the people came to get Jesus, I don't know if you know this, but the soldiers came to get him, to arrest him. Peter took a knife out and started trying to knife people and cut an ear off. Did you guys know that? Oh yeah, and then and Jesus had to be like, oh great. And he picked it up and put the ear back. Yeah, really. He's like, love, remember love, Peter? Okay, so he healed him. Peter's got a huge personality. He's also the guy, he's known for this, who said, I will never deny you. You remember that? Everybody else will deny you, I will not deny you. And then we all know the story, right? Cock-a-doodle-doo. Denied him. Once? How many times, anybody? Three times. So he denies him, feels terrible about it. The movement that Jesus was talking about, that he signed up for 3 years later, it's dying. It's it's dying because the leader died. He was killed. So he's like, oh, great. So Peter goes back to what he knows, fishing. He was a fisherman. He goes, we don't know why he did that. We do know that he kind of went, he just said, okay. So I'm going to go back to what I know. He had to provide for his family. He had to work. He had to do stuff. He's a fisherman. Before, in 3 years, people were funding that whole movement of Jesus, and he was with Jesus. But now the leader is dead, so he's got to go back and provide. So he goes back to what he knows, and that's fishing. What's interesting about Peter and Jesus is that their conversation, like their first real kind of defining moment in their relationship. You know, that one conversation that kind of defines people's relationship. Like for the first time you see them in a light and you're like, oh, I always remember this. That moment was actually Jesus and Peter. Peter was in the boat and he had not caught any fish, and Jesus said, hey, why don't you try to do this and put the nets down on this side? And Peter was like, really? You know, you're a carpenter, I'm a fisherman, stop. You know, but he did it. And when he did that, he caught so much fish and all that, and that moment, he started following Jesus. So now, Jesus has been killed. Peter goes back fishing. They're out there. They caught nothing. There's a dude on the shore that says, hey guys, throw the nets on the other side. And you know, everybody's like, oh, come on. Another guy who wants to tell me how to do my job. Anybody have that? Anybody have those people? But Peter goes, oh, I know who this guy is. I remember that. And he goes, that's Jesus. He jumps off the boat. I don't know if he was planning on walking. I'm not quite sure. But he jumps off the boat, swims to him. There's Jesus with breakfast. I don't know where he got the fish and the bagels. I'm not sure. But I don't know if there was bagels. I'm not quite sure. There was definitely Starbucks. I don't know. I mean, it's not, anyways. So they got a breakfast scene going on. They sit down. After breakfast, this conversation happens. We read it. John 21, verses 15 through 18. After breakfast, Jesus asked Simon Peter, Simon, son of John, do you love me more than these? Which is an interesting conversation. That's interesting, right? Hey, do you love me more than these guys? I mean, I thought the first conversation was, hey, what happened, bro? You were supposed to not deny me. Told you would. But the first conversation is, hey, first thing, do you love me more than these guys? Peter doesn't know what's going on here, so he goes, what? He goes, yes, Lord. Peter replied, you know I love you. Then feed my lambs, Jesus told him. I wonder what that is. But Jesus keeps on going. He says, repeated the question. He says, Simon, son of John, do you love me? Yes, Lord, Peter said, you know I love you. Then take care of my sheep. Jesus said, again, a third time he asked him, Simon, son of John, do you love me? Peter was hurt that Jesus asked the question a third time. He said, Lord, you know everything. You know I love you. Jesus said, then feed my sheep. You got lamb, you got sheep, feeding. Okay, what's going on? Then he goes on and says, I tell you the truth, Peter. When you were young, you were able to do as you liked, and you dressed yourself and went everywhere, wherever you wanted to go. But when you are old, you will stretch out your hands and others will dress you. What? And take you where you don't want to go. Jesus said this to him to let him know by what kind of death he would glorify God. Then Jesus told him this, follow me. Okay, what just happened? What is going on? What is getting lost in translation in this English translation? Because we're reading it here, 2017. They're living in a different world. What is going on? I mean, commentaries about, okay, Jesus was using different words. You got different words for love, phileo, agape love, and there's an interchange mix going on over there. I mean, there's so many things out there to talk about it. Even the word he said, follow me, actually means keep on following me. That's actually the biggest, the most profound thing. Sometimes in Jesus stories, you have to kind of wait till the end of the statement to kind of make sense of everything else that Jesus was saying. He basically says, I want you to keep on following me. It translates not follow me, but keep on following me. What is the point of this story? Was it like, hey, you denied me 3 times, I'm going to restore you 3 times. I'm going to ask you, do you love me? Do you love me? Do you love me? Am I going to make you feel bad? What is going on? Here's what's going on. What's going on is that Peter hit a lid. He was shocked by the level of fear that lived inside of him. Have you ever been? Have you ever been shocked by the level of insecurity that you have? I mean, I'm not even going to ask for you to raise your hand because you're like, no, I'm not going to do that because you're insecure. You know, like you're going to, have you been shocked by the level of cynicism in your life? Have you been shocked by the level of how this one thing, this one failure in your life has shaped your character? Have you been shocked by the level of just, man, I thought I was that guy, but I'm not that guy? Have you been shocked by and disappointed by where you are in life right now? You don't even want to go back to like, you know, your high school reunion, college reunion, right? You're like, no, not doing that. I got enough disappointment in my life. Have you been shocked just looking on social media going and comparing and going, man, what happened to me? What do you do in moments like that? You go back to doing what you know you can do well. You go back to doing what you know you can do well and you can do easy. You go back to fishing because it provides, it's a job. You just go back to it. This whole interchange, sure it was to restore him. Sure there was a lot of things going on. The point of this story is Jesus saying this. You know, I want you to keep on following me, right? You know, you're still the rock, right? Like, you know, you're still that guy. Like, this failure, this epic moral failure does not disqualify you. I'm not taking it back. You're still that guy. Hey, you remember, you love me, right? You love me, right? Yeah, of course you love me, yeah. So you know what the deal was, right? We're going to do this because God loves me, I love God, God loves people. This is all for love. We're going to do this, right? You need to get back to work. I'm using lambs, sheep. You know we're not talking about sheep, right? We're not really talking about lambs. We're talking about people. Peter, you don't get an out because you screwed up. You don't. Peter, you're still that guy. Like, I called you, I uniquely gifted you. You had moments. Peter, by the way, you had several moments of failure. You're still that guy. Peter, what are you doing? Lean in. Peter, you can jump higher. I know you hit a wall. I know you hit the wall that could define your life. But if you do this, Peter, if you go back to fishing, you leave this idea, this big idea, then it's going to shape your kids. It's going to shape generations to come. Peter, No, Peter, you don't get to do that. Because when I walked into your life, into your heart, I gave you my spirit. I took the lid off once and for all. If you're jumping and you're hitting something, you're hitting air. You're just not jumping high enough. The lid is off. Peter, the lid's been off. Peter, I never put the lid back on. You did. Peter, I want you to keep on following me. I know I'm not even here anymore. I want you to go back. Remember why we did this. You remember why we're doing this. You remember why this movement started. You remember, we've talked about this. God is doing something in human history that will shape the future of it. He is restoring, redeeming. He is doing something that you don't even understand. There is a natural world. There's a supernatural world. You are part of that story. Peter, there is no way you're going to go back to fish. There's no way. please don't go back. I think for some of us, God's saying, hey, you've been jumping to that level of disappointment, that level of like resistance in your life, the level of character that you think you have. You're jumping only to that failure. You're jumping only to that failure. And you've trained yourself to do that now. Please don't do that. Have you heard this passage before? Have you come across this passage? It's in 1 Peter. So Peter writes a book, right? And he's creative, so he writes 1 Peter. So this is now Peter understanding what Jesus said, taking ownership, leaning into it. And he does not stop. He does exactly what Jesus says. He moves forward, and now we see a future future Peter. And this is his thought process. Before it was, I'm just going to go back. I'm just going to go back. I'm going to be in the shadows. I'm going to live in my untapped potential. I'm going to do that. Here now, he's writing this, and he's telling us. I'm so glad Peter leaned in, because we would not have 1 Peter if he had not leaned in, if that conversation had not happened. Here is Peter saying this. He says, but you, so now he's talking to us. He says, but you are a what? Chosen people, a royal priesthood, a holy nation, God's special possession. Could you imagine as he was writing this, maybe he was just going, I am. Because I remember that day, he reminded me, I am a chosen person. I'm part of a royal priesthood. I have a spiritual assignment in one sense here. I'm a part of a holy, a beyond natural community. I am God's very own possession. I was created uniquely, intentionally. Could he be writing this? And then he's motivated to tell us this. And then he says that you may declare the praises of him who called you out of darkness into his wonderful light. Once you were not a people, but now you are the people of God. Once you had not received mercy, but now you receive mercy. Once you were inside the jar. Once you were in darkness. Once you were there. And now Peter is saying, I leaned in. Let me just tell you, guys, you're a holy nation. You're a royal priesthood. You are intentionally created. You are God's own possession. You now receive all the grace and all the mercy that God has. It's unending. And he's taken you out of darkness into light, so you may declare his praises, which means this, that you may live up to your potential, your identity, that you may live up to the level that God calls you to live. You want to live a life that worships God? Live a very full life. Live out all the dreams and all the things that God has put in you. You really want to worship God? Don't do it with your mouth. Do it with your life. That's what he's saying. So why do you exist? Why do I exist? Why? I mean, I had to wrestle this out for a while. And it's so connected to what I do here at Mosaic. When Ashley and I started Mosaic 11 years ago, it's wrapped up into that. Let me give you why Mosaic exists. Let me just tell you. Mosaic exists to reclaim the message and the movement of Jesus. You're like, what? I thought it was about saving people and da-da-da-da. No, it's more. It's bigger. It's not the what, it's the why. Why do we matter? We matter because we know there is a problem in this city. We know there's a problem in this world. We know there's a problem in the message and the movement of Jesus. People know Jesus. People have heard of Jesus everywhere. I've traveled part of the world. I'm just telling you, everybody has heard of Jesus. They've heard sort of the message of Jesus. They've heard sort of the community, the church. They've kind of felt the movement of Jesus. But I'm telling you, they're hearing something that's so off. And we exist. My life needs to be about reclaiming the message and the movement of Jesus. The message of Jesus. What is the message of Jesus? It's this. It's simple. It's very simple. But I don't know why we got it wrong. But this is the message of Jesus. This is God's why. If you've ever wondered, like, okay, so what about God? Why did God do this? Why do we exist? Why did Jesus come? Why do you have to be killed? Why do you have to die? Why? This is the why, not just the what. This is the why of God. So, Jesus is having a conversation. He goes, let me tell you why I am here. Let me tell you what God is doing. Let me tell you why he's doing this. You know why he's doing this? For God so loved the world that he gave his one and only Son, that whoever believes in him shall not perish but have everlasting life. For God did not send his Son into the world to condemn the world, but that through it might be saved. I don't know if you've ever heard the message, the why. That's why we're talking about Jesus. That's why we're having this conversation. That's why you're here. That's why God sent his Spirit and Jesus. You want to know, you can spend your life talking about the what and how does this work and what about this theology and this and how does this passage connect to this, and you can take principles and apply them because they're full of wisdom and knowledge. You can do all of that, but if you ever want to know the heart, if you ever want to go, hey, so why are you doing this? I am doing this because I love the world. Let me tell you, your sin was not that bad for me to intervene. I did it because I love you. Sin is basically God saying sin is not my why. That is profound, isn't it? That's the message of Jesus. Sin is not that why. It's the what, but the why. Why Jesus existed and still exists is because God so loved the world. That is the message of Jesus that we believe as a church, that we need to reclaim. Man, Jesus came not to condemn you. You do that enough yourself. He came to help, to save, to restore, to take the lid off. That is the pure message of the why of Jesus, the why of God who created you. That through him you would live the life that you were meant to live. And so what is the movement of Jesus? The movement of Jesus is this. Let me read this to you. It's a beautiful picture. It says all the believers were together and had everything in common, which that's a miracle right there. They sold property and possessions to give to everyone who had need. Every day they continued to meet together in temple courts. They broke bread in their homes and ate together with glad and sincere hearts, praising God and enjoying the favor of all the people. And the Lord added to their number daily those who were being saved. This is a beautiful picture because it says this movement, this community of Jesus was defined by diversity, unity, by spirituality, by generosity, by acceptance and favor. This is the kind of movement that Jesus was talking about. We as a church exist for that. We'll do a lot of other things. But man, our why is that. That's why we call Mosaic, Mosaic. Because we believe that we can be so different and yet still united. That we're called to reflect what God had in mind. That all the believers would still be one. And that's why when different nations log on, they're part of us. And so we want to be defined by saying, hey, this is the kind of community we want to be defined as. I was having a conversation this week and I was inviting someone to church, and this person was like, well, said, I do not do church. And I was like, really? Well, I was like, great, come to Mosaic. She's like, no, I'm telling you, I get panic attacks. And then said something like this, I don't need that in my life right now. I don't need to be discouraged. Like, I don't need that kind of like guilt in my life. And I was like, do people believe? That's what they think, right? That's what they think. They don't know of a place that you can actually belong and be a part before you ever believe. They don't know, they've never seen the beauty of a Jesus community. Because you know why? Because the message and the movement has been hijacked. It's been taken over for either political gain or socioeconomic gain or some other agenda. And so we're gonna take, like how you take wood and you kind of strip it and make it beautiful. When you're not creating wood, you're just reclaiming it. And we're taking that. We exist to tell people, hey, this is the pure message of Jesus. And this is what the movement of Jesus looks like. So this morning, I want to ask you, what is your why? What is it? It's worth the effort. It's worth the effort to dig and discover, hey, what is it? I pray you don't live your life jumping to the height of this and God saying there was never a lid on you. So this morning, what do you need to do? For some of us, maybe today is the first day. Maybe you're watching online. Today is the first day you go, I want to lean into what God is doing in my life or asking me to do when it comes to Jesus. I think I need to I need to just come to Jesus. So I want to pray for you. And others of you, I want to pray that God leads you in discovering why you matter. What is your unique calling? What is your unique footprint in this world? You were called to be a unique voice, never an echo of someone else. Let's pray together. Lord God, thank you so much for this moment. I pray for those this morning who are saying, Jesus, today I'm making that day. I'm saying, I know you've been working in my life. Today I'm saying, Jesus, I want you to lead my life. God, I pray right now that they would just, in their hearts and in their minds, would say, Jesus, forgive me of all the stuff. You know all of it. And fill me with your presence, all of you. And God, I pray for those of us who courageously say that today is the day that we live above the lid. We lean in to what you're doing in our lives, rediscovering that you have called us to so much more. God, we love you. God, I pray that as we receive communion, as we go to the crosses, as we light candles, remind us of who and how great you are.